The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu. We got some great topics to share with you, of course, today. We also have my co-host. We got to introduce first and foremost Greg Buchanan, the host of the CPCA Radio, as well as the GM for the Lloydminster Junior B Bandits. How are you?
Not too bad, Moses.
Excellent. And we also have our guest who had to be a last-minute fill-in, but looking to at least come up with a couple big plays today. Brandon Basler, the afternoon host on Lloyd FM. How are you?
Good. When you can't find anybody else, you just give me the call. Eh?
Yeah, he comes off the bench.
He also does that for parties, too, as well. So if you have kids' birthday parties, they're not working out, you lose a clown, we always got Brandon. But, hey, dude, it's awesome to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's get to the topics. There's no clowning around with Jose Batista's comments about Team Canada at the World Baseball Classic. Of course, losing their first game to Italy. They had to have a big win against Mexico, and they did. They won actually 10-3. But in the ninth inning, up 9-3, the Canadians decided to bunt, get some runs in there. Of course, run differential is a big thing at the World Baseball Classic, considering you're only playing 3 games to advance to the next round. So everything's important. But however, Jose Batista said that they broke the unwritten rule, the baseball code, if you will, that you do not run up the score. Now, you had John Gibbons, the manager of the Blue Jays, say, you know what, it's not that bad. You can understand where they're coming from. Ernie Witt's like, look, we had to do what we had to do in that game in order to make it to the next round. Do you think Batista's comments were a little over the top?
No, I have to respect the guy. He could take the old political line because he's playing in Canada, but baseball code is baseball code. And, Canada was looking for the runs for and against the World Baseball Championship, and they thought they needed to get more runs in. But the Mexican pitcher had to have 3 shots to try to hit that batter. The first 2 pitches he misses. Finally, the third one he hits him. Doesn't say much about that Mexican pitcher, but you look at it, it was Canada out of the wrong, probably where Canada was. It is baseball code. And if the roles were reversed, Canada likely would be doing the same thing.
I don't think they were in the wrong. I think if it was a best out of 5 and they did that and they were already winning the game, then they would be in the wrong. But when they've been burnt in the past with the for and against runs 4 years ago, they were burnt by that. So why would you take the chance?
Why don't you just hit the ball instead of bunt the ball? Try to get a base hit.
Well, I guess either way, it still upset a few fans. But I don't know. I think Canada wasn't in the wrong. But you did mention something that was very interesting, of course, the pitching late in the game that involved or that actually ignited a brawl on the field. Now, this one wasn't really a brawl, more like a scrap than anything else. Punches were thrown. Things were thrown on the field by the fans, baseballs, water bottles, you name it. But aside from that, is this good publicity for the World Baseball Classic? Because do you really see the World Baseball Classic as being something tangible? A lot of people don't really care about it.
Yeah, who really cares about it right now? Probably this is one of the best things that's happened to it because it's got people talking about it, at least here in Canada. They're getting decent crowds down in the U.S., they're getting decent crowds in South America, but at the same time, they're not packing the place. It's a bad time of year to have it. You're going to put your Major League Baseball players into a situation where they could get hurt before their season even starts. Maybe have it at the end of their baseball season so, at least if they do get hurt, they have some time to recover until their season starts.
I think it did obviously help with publicity. I know I wasn't watching the game, but everywhere I was, people were saying, oh, did you see the brawl in the Canada-Mexico game? Like, people were noticing it. They were watching the highlights. I don't know. I think it may be bigger this year in Canada, maybe because Canadian fans are excited for the Blue Jays and they're excited for baseball, so kind of jumping on board. I know I watched definitely the game against the U.S.
Hey, it got in Coach's Corner. That's the bottom line. It got hockey night. It got highlights on hockey night in Canada, and on a Saturday night in Canada. Who doesn't watch that?
That helps out. Hey, well, you know what? I'll go to the NHL. A team that really needs some help, at least recently, was the Edmonton Oilers. And I think they're really happy to see Sean Horkoff out of all the players they could have had back and been thankful for. Sean Horkoff was one. He definitely helped out when it came to the face-off circle. Oilers ended up beating the Chicago Blackhawks, ending a little bit of a skid. And this team has struggled of late, but still are only 5 points back of Minnesota for third place in the conference, or top of the conference, third overall in the West, and still 5 points out of a playoff spot in 8th. So there's still hope, right?
You're hoping there's hope. Come on, folks. There's not hope. They don't have any grit up front. They don't have any kind of sandpaper. They don't have size up front. Their back end is weak to begin with. Their goaltending has been suspect of lately. They got to win in Chicago. They barely got to win in Chicago after having a 4-0 lead, and they held on with the tips of their fingernails. They can't wait to get home. 9th game of the road trip coming up, and after that they get home, and they have to go on a tear to make the playoffs now.
They're obviously in tough, but I like the game against Chicago, not just because they won, but the game they played. Because the games before that, they were playing this defensive strategy game where they lose 3-0 and 2-0, which is not the Edmonton Oilers. That's not what the fans want to see.
Got blown out by Nashville.
I would rather watch them lose 6-5 than lose 2-0 and get 7 shots on goal, because that's not the team.
If you play pond hockey, the Oilers, they're going to beat you. If you play hard-nosed, grinded out kind of hockey, the Oilers don't have a chance. They have too many forwards. They're all the same kind of players, all skilled, don't want to hit, don't want to get in the corners. Until they get that. And Horkoff he gets criticized for the money they paid him, but at the same time, he's a guy that doesn't do one good thing, but he does a whole bunch of little things
Helped
very
out
well.
with the penalty kill and face-offs, and
But
that's
they
been
need
their
more.
biggest issue.
Yeah.
You know what
especially
they
in
need? They need a guy like Ryan Clough who can score, and he's a power forward, and he's not scared to go in the corners and, bump a guy. They might have to give up 3 guys to get a guy like him that could make the difference.
And as bad as it sounds, Mike Brown's probably a good pickup for him. And, he doesn't add a lot of skill, but he adds a little bit of toughness, and he adds a little bit of sandpaper. Right now, they don't have any of that up front. Ben Eager has totally disappeared as a tough guy in that team right now. He's believing he's a skilled guy, and I don't know where he believed that from, but they need to get a little bit of help up front, because if they don't,
And
they're
Ryan
not going
Whitney,
anywhere.
good trade bait, I guess, in this case, because he's starting to score recently, getting back to his old form, if you would say.
I think they're hoping that his recent play is bumping that up, where they can throw him into a deal with maybe you give up a guy like PRV, because he's not necessarily a top 6 guy. You don't need any more Jordan Eberles. Maybe you give up Ryan Whitney and PRV and another guy, and you go for that big power forward. But I think Ryan Whitney's play lately has definitely got some teams thinking, like Pittsburgh or Detroit.
Clarkson would be another guy in New Jersey. Would be nice, wouldn't he?
Yeah, they need to get something up front. And if Ray Whitney helps them to get a little bit of grit up front, they're definitely going to have to move him.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Gloves Are Off.